President Obama has promised time and time again to crack down on the wrongdoings of Wall Street. In a State of the Union address, he vowed that a residential mortgage-backed securities task force would investigate the people who created and sold worthless bonds.
This settlement also protects our ability to further investigate the practices that caused this mess, and this is important. The Mortgage Fraud Task Force I announced in my State of the Union address retains its full authority to aggressively investigate the packaging and selling of risky mortgages that led to this crisis.
Well, it's this kind of reckless behavior that contributed to the financial collapse in 2008. But here we are, 9 months later, and co-chair of the group and New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has filed charges against Bear Stearns, a now defunct company bought out by J.P. Morgan. Now, this is a civil case, which means no one will be serving jail time. So is this really the kind of justice President Obama promised, or is this just election season theatrics? To talk more about this, David Dine, blogger for Firedog Lake, has been following the story very closely and is here now to talk more about it. Thanks for joining us there, David. First off, want to ask you what exactly Bear Stearns is being accused of?
Well, they're accused of putting together these mortgage-backed securities deals around the height of the housing bubble. And they made representations to investors that they would ensure the quality of the loans in the deal would match the underwriting guidelines that were put together in all the associated materials. And what they're accused of is not doing that. They allowed defective loans that did not meet the guidelines into the deal. They berated their third-party due diligence specialist who they hired to look at the quality of the loans and told them to, ramp up the machine and make these loans go, underwrite them faster. And finally, they when they did find loans that were completely defective, that had actually gone into default within the first 30 to 90 days of the loan, they entered into settlements with those originators, and they did not use the money in the settlement and give it to the investors who were owed it because they owned the loans at that point. So they are accused of sort of double dipping in that case, not passing along the money in these repurchases onto the investors who were owed it.
Now, we're talking about, individual mortgages, but when it happens on a large scale, what does that do to the economy?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
This has been blamed, basically, for contributing to the financial collapse of 2008. Why is that?
Well, absolutely. We're talking about large numbers when, the price of mortgage-backed securities, the risk was not really priced into the deal. And if you look at this situation, you know why. Bear Stearns and other people like them that sold these mortgage-backed securities made representations that these were much safer products, and that increased the demand for these products, and then in turn increased housing prices and created this bubble as more and more loans were being sold to feed this securitization machine. And as a result, you had a situation where prices went up and up and up, and finally when they went up no longer, they crashed, and this caused a massive amount of pain that went throughout the economy, and all of these loans, or a substantial amount of these loans, ended up failing.
Now, many people were expecting criminal charges for some of the bankers, but this is a civil case, so that means nobody is going to go to jail. Do you think that criminal charges should be filed? Should people be going to jail?
Certainly, but they weren't. I mean, this is the task force that you talked about has not issued one criminal subpoena yet. All of the subpoenas have been civil. I mean, this case largely builds off a number of other cases that private litigants had brought, investors and bond insurers, a long time ago. And this kind of a case could have been filed probably 2 years ago. There's nothing in this case that's anything new. It's all stuff that we knew about in terms of what Bear Stearns and all of the banks, and frankly, were doing in misrepresenting the quality of their securities to their customers. The AMBAC case, which was a bond insurer, was the main case that this was modeled under. And that woman who filed that case now works in Eric Schneiderman's office. So obviously this could have been put together 2 years ago. It's a civil case and not a criminal case. And it looks to me like it's something where, because the federal groups didn't even involve themselves in it in terms of doing a parallel proceeding, it just looks like a situation where Schneiderman needed something to go. It's a month before the election. There were a lot of questions about whether this task force was even a real thing. And he took something off the shelf that could have been filed a couple years earlier. And that has actually implications because of the statute of limitations. It enables us only to cover within this lawsuit a small portion of the loans that were produced in this period.
And that's the thing. People have been waiting for almost a year now for a lawsuit from the RMBS working group. Is it possible that did they really need all that time to make this case?
I don't think so. I mean, the subpoenas that ultimately were issued that relate to this case were issued in April of 2011. Now, what Schneiderman says is that he needed the federal support to go through the cases and support them and everything. But a lot of this information was in the public domain. The Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission put together a report in 2011, January of 2011, that explained all of this third-party due diligence work that was being done fraudulently by the people like Bear Stearns, and all of this information was public. In fact, Clayton Holdings, which is the main third-party due diligence firm in this case, was subject to a cooperation agreement with the New York Attorney General's office that predates Schneiderman. That was from Andrew Cuomo's time in the New York Attorney General's office. So all of this information was out there. This case should have been brought a couple of years ago. And I'm still not satisfied that the federal task force is really doing anything of value to get us to the bottom of this. It's nice that they're putting a case together that follows on some other good work that people are doing, but I would have expected to see even more.
All right, and you had touched upon this earlier, the timing of this case. And of course, we're in the thick of election season. We have that first debate coming tomorrow. So is this a political move?
Well, everything's political, right? So, obviously, if you were looking for an October surprise, the calendar switched to October 1st, and voila, we have a case.
There it is.
That filed.
We got our October surprise. Well, very interesting, and really appreciate you coming on the show, David. That was David Dayen. He's a blogger for Firedog Lake.
Thank you.